Hey guys, Marcel from theScore eSports here, and we are joined by a very rare guest, maybe a new face. I interviewed him for the first time, Atlus from the LPL English cast. You guys did the event in Shanghai, and you're also a Oceanic kind of play-by-play caster there, right? So, okay, coming to this tournament, I think you've watched quite a bit of China, unlike other people. So, is China actually really that good? I mean, they're like 7-1 right now, I think, in their whole group phase. They look pretty unbeatable, but CLG just beat them. And what's your take on China right now? Is like overperforming, or are they actually there? Are other teams underperforming?
I think there is no doubt that they are overperforming. Like coming into this tournament, I mean, the last we saw internationally was IEM, where honestly the teams didn't do as well as we were necessarily hoping. Personally, as casters of the LPL, these teams were looking very dominant in domestically, teams like Chagu, teams like RNG, who were looking fantastic. The fact that they got Mata and Lupa, they're back together. Lupa looking so much stronger now that he's on this roster, showing over the last few games that he is still world-class top laner. This team is phenomenal. But back then, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same amazing RNG that we're seeing here. And then they went back home. They managed to actually learn how to lane swap a little bit better. Wouldn't say that it's perfect yet. But definitely fixing up that play. Rift Herald focus coming into the LPL was definitely a big thing at the same time. So the fact that the meta hasn't shifted so much like it did at Worlds before the teams managed to make it over there, that feels like they've got a much more of a grasp. But no one was expecting this, man. Like, I don't even.
Okay, so you said meta, and of course the meta is kind of shifted actually coming this tournament because teams suddenly forgot how to play 1-3-1s, I think, right? So that's not my question. As an expert, I would say, yeah, teams are really bad right now at 1-3-1, and RNG is really good at team fighting. So do you think that in the best of 5 scenario that once teams relearn how to play 1-3-1, that they're gonna beat them?
Well, I actually find it really ironic that the only game that RNG lose is a game that they're trying the 1-3-1. And this is a team that's wanted to teamfight after every single game. It doesn't matter how far down they are, they're still able to find that 5v5 and find the victory. And then they get into a 14,000 gold lead, a game that looks insurmountable. And somehow, with the fact that CLG have this phenomenal teamfighting comp, Stixay is playing out of his goddamn mind. Who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? The Kalista play, teamfight after teamfight after teamfight in that game. If he had made one mistake, that would have been it. But flawless execution from this man, and they couldn't do it. But the fact that it was 1-3-1, that they were able to do fantastically. MLXG's Nidalee has been the best of the tournament. I think it's almost safe to say now. But I don't even know. It seems like teamfighting is where it's at.
Yeah. So teamfighting and Nidalee, I think we see like a lot of Kindred right now, highest win rate jungler, highest priority, and Alice are like Kindred and Alice are like the two best picks currently at the tournament. So what do you think of this whole thing? Because there's like a lot of discussion why Nidalee isn't really working out. Do you think maybe that the meta shift kind of favors like ganking a lot more and dragon control especially? Because Kasa just said in an interview with me that he thinks Kindred is better because dragon control is so much more important, and all these team fights are happening around dragon. So what's your take on like the whole jungle situation and maybe like the meta right now?
Well, from my sort of experience was the fact that Graves was sort of the answer to the Kindred. Sort of like that, like considered able to farm out as quickly, has a lot of extra burst damage, all that sort of thing. The collateral damage is fantastic after everyone's low on the ultimate, but Graves took a little bit of a hit. Of course, does a little bit more with crit, as we actually saw MLXG picking up the Infinity Edge. But like, he's not that sort of power jungler that he was before. So that sort of shift in power has gone towards the Kindred. And the fact that if you're going to win with a Nidalee, it has to be with a very different strategy. And we haven't seen a team find a strat that's going to beat this late game team fighting if they can do it with this gold deficit.
A team that also doesn't really know what to do or seem a bit lost, SKT right now. I think they have lost quite a couple of games. There's
4 in a row.
4 in a row. They have not been a single time in the Faker era where they lost 4 games in a row. So in your mind, what's wrong with the team? Do you think they just look completely lost? Bad read on the meta maybe? Or maybe a bit of tilt even, like from Faker himself?
The way I sort of describe what it feels like is happening is very similar to the movie 300. You know, as soon as you throw that first spear and show that Xerxes can bleed, it seems like the floodgates have opened, and it's like this is a team that doesn't have that immortal aura around them anymore. And so RNG takes that first win and just seems like something went wrong. And I guess people have been saying like bring Bengi back, all of this sort of stuff, but the team just needs to sit down, realize that they're still the same ridiculous team that they are, and get over this obvious, like it does feel like tilt, but I don't like the word very much, but they've just got to get their heads back in the game.
We have to talk about G2. They're looking better, right, throughout the whole tournament. And realistically speaking, it's kind of over, but mathematically they can still manage to pull it through, right, with like some crazy upsets. But what's your take on G2? Do you think that maybe if they would have played like a bit more games on the stage and come together as a team, that they would have been able to get or still go into the group stages? Or are they like maybe having internal issues right now? I mean, there have been the Facebook post from Emperor where he said he struggles because there's like an internal event happening and everything. What's your take on this whole situation, maybe?
I've heard about the internal struggle and all this sort of stuff, but I think a whole lot of it has to do with momentum. And for RNG, it worked fantastically. This was a team that heading into the tournament, I was thinking if they lost the first game, I don't know what's going to happen. Like it might be just another sort of international situation where China doesn't find a win. And unfortunately for Europe, they came in, first game was a loss, and it felt like it just compounded and compounded and compounded. And they couldn't pull themselves out of the hole. So even though they managed to take down Supermassive both times in a row, they didn't manage to get the follow-up game. So it's just like you still finish the day at a negative. And it's been too much. Also, I feel like the supports at this tournament are going completely ballistic.
Yeah.
Sword Art, Mata, even though he didn't have his best game on the Thresh, Afromu, like these guys are playing incredibly, incredibly well. And I don't think Hybrid can really keep up because he doesn't have the same sort of Alistair priority necessary. They have to blue side ban it. They're sort of gimping themselves a little bit in that role. And sort of unless he can get the Braum and look like he can stand up in the laning phase, it's not feeling like he's at the same level. And that's not saying that Hybrid isn't good. It's saying that everybody else in the support role has stepped up so far.
Okay, last question. Best of fives, predictions. Who's going to win this tournament?
I don't know. I could predict anything, and there's still no way that I can really be sure. Flash Wolves and RNG are looking, at the moment, by far the best. If that's going to be the final, that is, at the moment, what looks like is going to be the most competitive. As far as best of fives are concerned, I don't see RNG losing in that scenario. They went to 5 games against WE in the playoffs, and it looked like in the last game they managed to keep their composure. This is a team that subbed in a very young AD carry for a game 5 and then managed to win with him having an MVP performance. And the fact that Whoosh is so young but still able to have that sort of fortitude of mind is fantastic. Of course, I might be speaking from a little bit of bias here, but I think that RNG will be able to take down the top spot, and they're 7-1, so I mean, I guess it's relatively safe.
Yeah.
He says this tournament.
Relatively safe. This tournament. Okay, thank you so much. Follow this guy on Twitter and everything. He's a pretty good, insightful guy for play-by-play caster. If you guys want to check out more interviews, we have them covered at theScore eSports.com. Make sure to check them out, and see you guys next time.